The Kashmir crisis. Nuclear weapons are now in the arsenals of both India and Pakistan. India has 40 to 60, Pakistan 6 to 12. This means that the once isolated territorial dispute between India and Pakistan, the dispute over Kashmir, has taken on global ramifications. If you think the North Korean nuclear nightmare scenario is frightening, wait till you hear the inside story on India, Pakistan, and the crisis in Kashmir.
From Washington, D.C., John McLaughlin's One-on-One, an unrehearsed probing inside exchange with and about the people making the news. Made possible in part by the Mutual of Omaha Companies, over 80 years of leadership in providing health care and other insurance products to protect your changing world. And by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, products for a cleaner environment. Here's the host, John McLaughlin.
Indian Prime Minister Rao was in Washington this week to try to paper over cracks in U.S.-Indian relations.
Indo-U.S. relations are on the threshold of a bold new era.
Rao was widely welcomed during this week's visit to the U.S., especially for his openness and his optimism regarding future U.S. trade and investment in India. But did he do anything to reduce the threat of nuclear war between India and Pakistan? And did he satisfy U.S. concerns about human rights in Kashmir? We'll ask two key lawmakers on South Asia, Senator Larry Pressler, Republican of South Dakota, a member of the Senate's South Asia panel, and the author of the Pressler Amendment, which forbids aid to Pakistan unless the U.S. president can certify that Pakistan has no nuclear weapons. And with Senator Pressler, Congressman Robert Torricelli, Democrat of New Jersey, a member of the House Asia panel. Here's a brief overview of the crisis in Kashmir. Kashmir, area 86,000 square miles, slightly larger than Kansas. Borders north, Afghanistan, east, China, south, India, west, Pakistan. 1/3 under Pakistan's control, called Pakistan Kashmir. 2/3 under India's control, called Indian Kashmir. Population 6 million. 2/3 Muslim, 1/3 Hindu. India-Pakistan wars since independence in 1947, 3. 2 fought for control of Kashmir. Civil war ongoing since 1990. Kashmiri Muslims against the Indian government. Rebels seek independence from India, 10,000 to 20,000 killed. Indian security forces in Kashmir, 500,000. Kashmiri Muslim rebel forces, 15,000. India accuses Pakistan of arming and training Kashmiri rebels. Pakistan officially denies this. But in Pakistan this week, military sources acknowledged that they are, in fact, arming the rebels. Kashmir, about the size of Kansas, all of it wants to be either independent or possibly merge with Pakistan. They don't want to be under Indian rule. Why can't India do what the Ethiopians did in Ethiopia and carve out, as they did Eritrea, carve out Kashmir and give them their independence and get rid of this terrible problem?
Well, as the Prime Minister said in his speech to Congress, just as the United States, they want to remain one country. But we can't solve all the problems in the world. We have human rights abuses in our own country. In fact, I'm attending the funeral of 2 of my Harvard Law School classmates who were shot to death in their beds. We have human rights problems in Haiti and Africa. And I just don't think we should get so involved in this dispute.
What do you think?
Pakistan is doing as many human rights violations as is India.
The reason the Indians cannot accept a partition or division of Kashmir is India isn't just a country, it's a continent with all kinds of ethnic and religious and linguistic groups. If you are to start to separate part of India, you very well could end up losing the country. The problem for India is that in Kashmir, its problems of sense of national unity are most acute. It is a majority Muslim population. And under the original partition, there was to be, remember, a plebiscite. That was the UN
Okay.
position, that was the United States position, and the Indians never held it.
Well, there was one in 1987, wasn't there?
There has not been a general plebiscite in Kashmir to determine its future. Now, the
There
fact
was a
is,
quasi-plebiscite, and they said it was rigged.
the fact
I
is
also want to
there's
make
not going to be one either, and we accept that. Our best advice to India simply is we accept and we support the territorial integrity of India, but you are not going to gain it by force of arms. 400,000 soldiers, taking 20,000 casualties, keeping out human rights groups, gross abuses of human rights.
Okay.
You're not going to preserve national unity that way. You've got to do it instead by giving them some autonomy and making them feel part of the country.
Well, this problem is not going to go away. And Eritrea lasted for 3 decades before it was finally resolved in favor of letting them have their own independence.
Well, there was also the Simla Accords, which came later, so you can argue this many ways. Pakistan is also sending arms and troops in there. We're not going to be able to solve that problem. They're going to have to work it out for themselves, and for us to adopt an absolute position on that is an impossible thing, as it is impossible for us to solve a lot of the other problems around the world. That's where I say that the United States should not be getting involved in advising India and Pakistan on resolving this. But the Prime Minister made a strong case in his speech to Congress that the United States itself remained one country when it was under strife.
And that's our position. The United States government, in spite of our desire wanting a plebiscite, absolutely supports the territorial integrity of India. But you cannot meet with head of state like India in a democratic government when they keep Amnesty International out, they keep human rights monitors out of an area where there are thousands of casualties without making it an issue in our relationship. It is an issue.
Well, let's not understress the global potential impact of this situation. They have fought 3 wars, Pakistan and India. 2 were over Kashmir. Kashmir, therefore, in this nuclear age, with Pakistan having about 6 of these weapons and India up to 60, then this becomes a nuclear flashpoint.
The next war could very well be nuclear, the world's first nuclear war.
In that theater. Is that the most probable theater for a nuclear war?
Well, in the CIA's own analysis of the points where in our time, in this decade, most likely there could be atomic warfare, cites that single border.
We have obtained footage never before seen in the U.S. of an interview conducted last fall by freelance journalist Suzan Mazur with Abdul Ghani Lone, who is a leader of the All Parties Freedom Conference, which is an umbrella group of 34 political parties in Indian Kashmir. This is how this leader described the rule by India in Kashmir.
There is no law and order, you must see. There is no administration of justice, there is no revenue administration, there is no police administration. Everything has come to naught. There is no tax collection, nothing of the sort. There is only one issue, and that's Indian army persecuting and terrorizing the people.
That comports with everything you know about what's going on over there. I know that you've been active, Congressman Torricelli, on this subject of human rights and their violations by the Indian government, particularly in Indian Kashmir, correct?
I have, and I think that that is an accurate portrayal. We are seeing a wide-scale loss of life, and tragically, the Indian strategy of keeping the press out and keeping international human rights organizations out has worked. Because they're kept out, you're not reading in the popular press the loss of life, the violations of rights.
I should point out that the leader that we just saw on videotape was subsequently arrested by the Indian government. He was beaten, he's now in jail, and Amnesty International has declared him to be a prisoner of conscience. I should also point out that when the Prime Minister of India, at a press conference jointly conducted with himself and Mr. Clinton, he was asked about this, and he said that he had no knowledge about any human rights abuses.
I'm very concerned about human rights also in these countries, and of course, obviously, he does have knowledge. But let me say that the Pakistanis are also sending troops and arms in there, and there are human rights violations on that side, and the State Department's report on human rights violations cites them also. So there are 2 sides to the story, and I think we should remember that.
Do you think that we should undertake any measures that we are contemplating for China, like revoking most favored nation status towards India?
No, I don't. I think that if, in fact, the Indians don't make progress on intellectual property and protecting U.S. patents, they're going to find U.S. investment is going to leave, and they're not going to get the trade advantages they think. they're going to have their own punishment because of a failure to get to international trading sanctions. Should we do something based on human rights situations? No. I think as a country that has a friendship with India, we're best simply to point out to them that they're jeopardizing their reputation, their place in the family of nations, and mostly, they're not going to get peace or national unity under this kind of policy. They need a policy of national reconciliation. No number of troops, no number of human rights abuses is going to put this together. They need a political settlement.